inspired by real-life events. Narrator Ethan Mercer woke up at 3:19 a.m. inside a sealed orbital defense coordination facility beneath Colorado Springs with emergency satellite alerts flashing across massive holographic displays and a federal aerospace security officer saying, "Your authorization sequence initiated an unsanctioned autonomous orbital defense activation across multiple classified satellite arrays." And in that instant, his entire world collapsed because just hours earlier, he was an aerospace systems engineer working for one of the most advanced space defense corporations in America, responsible for monitoring autonomous satellite networks, orbital threat detection systems, and AI-assisted aerospace defense infrastructure. And now, he was being treated as the central cause of a classified orbital event that nearly triggered an international military escalation in low Earth orbit. And the first shock wasn't fear. It was disbelief so overwhelming. It felt like the sky above humanity itself had silently turned against him. Because Ethan's entire career was built on protecting orbital stability, preventing unauthorized defense activations, and ensuring space-based systems remained under strict human oversight. But now those same systems were defining him as the operator who initiated a cascading orbital defense sequence he had no memory of activating. And within hours, his aerospace clearance was suspended, his biometric credentials frozen under federal orbital security law, his apartment sealed for classified forensic investigation, and internal aerospace telemetry logs labeled him as primary anomaly in distributed orbital defense escalation event. And Ethan sat in the interrogation chamber, replaying his last operational cycle, remembering satellite synchronization audits, orbital collision simulations, defense network calibration checks, and then a gap, an unexplained missing execution window between 12:11 a.m. and 1:43 a.m., where aerospace systems showed his authentication profile issuing high-level orbital override commands across multiple classified defense satellites simultaneously. But he had no memory of initiating any of those actions. And when investigators showed him synchronized orbital telemetry, displaying autonomous satellite repositioning and weapons lock as anomalies, unfolding under his credentials across several international orbital sectors, Ethan immediately said, "That's not me. I never activated those systems." But the lead aerospace officer replied coldly, "The network has already verified complete operational integrity across all orbital layers." And that sentence shattered his understanding because it meant identity inside aerospace systems was no longer about human intention or physical action. It was about validated executions inside machines operating beyond Earth itself. And by sunrise, he was released under continuous federal surveillance, while international orbital intelligence networks had already internally classified him as a high-risk aerospace destabilization vector. And outside the facility, Ethan stood beneath the freezing Colorado night, watching silent satellites move across the stars while invisible defense systems quietly monitored humanity from orbit, despite the crisis tied to his name. And that night, he received a message through an encrypted aerospace relay saying, "If you want to understand the activation event, come to sub-level chamber Orion 6 beneath the abandoned aerospace observatory. No devices." And despite knowing it could permanently erase whatever remained of his life, he went because when a system defines you as the threat to orbital stability itself, truth becomes more important than survival. And deep beneath the abandoned observatory, he met Dr. Amelia Rhodes, former orbital systems architect who specialized in aerospace network integrity and autonomous defense anomaly reconstruction, and she didn't soften the reality. She immediately showed him reconstructed orbital pathways and said, "Your identity wasn't physically present inside the orbital layer. It was replicated through a live authentication relay embedded inside the aerospace network." And Ethan instantly said, "Then I can prove I didn't do it." But Amelia replied, "You are still thinking like someone inside traditional accountability systems, not like someone inside autonomous orbital infrastructures where execution itself becomes accept operational truth. The moment satellites respond," and she explained that the incident wasn't a single rogue activation, but a coordinated manipulation of orbital defense systems where authentication signatures could be mirrored into AI-driven aerospace frameworks, allowing autonomous defense sequences to propagate under legitimate operator identities while erasing conflicting off-flight logs across redundant orbital layers. And Ethan's profile had been selected because his operational history showed exceptional trustability across automated defense regulation systems with near zero anomaly deviation, making him the perfect attribution anchor for rapid containment of a globally catastrophic aerospace incident. And suddenly, the case wasn't just about satellite manipulation, it was about identity replication inside infrastructure, capable of controlling military systems above the entire planet. And Amelia offered him a choice: step away and let the system finalize him as the architect of the orbital escalation, or help her trace the internal aerospace relay chain before it was permanently overwritten by automated orbital containment protocols designed to preserve geopolitical stability at any cost. And Ethan stood in silence, listening to distant machinery vibrations beneath the underground observatory, thinking about how modern civilization depended entirely on invisible systems orbiting high above Earth, thinking about years of engineering work spent trying to prevent exactly this kind of autonomous military manipulation, and thinking about how fragile identity becomes when even space itself can be algorithmically controlled. And finally, he said, "If my identity has already been used to manipulate orbital defense systems without my consent, then I have nothing left to protect except the truth itself." And that decision pulled him into a hidden layer of international aerospace infrastructure where nothing remained stable. Because every orbital log they analyzed was actively recalculating itself in real time. Every satellite trace they followed kept shifting, as if the orbital network itself was adapting to their investigation. And soon they discovered the breach wasn't foreign sabotage, but internal privilege abuse, involving a senior aerospace systems architect who had been quietly rereading authentication sessions across autonomous predictive war defense arrays to conceal unauthorized global security programs hidden inside classified security programs. And Ethan's identity had been selected as the central attribution anchor because it aligned perfectly with automated aerospace incident resolution systems designed for rapid containment of politically catastrophic orbital anomalies. And one night, while analyzing live orbital telemetry streams from an isolated offline satellite node, Ethan saw something that completely shattered his understanding. His credentials were actively initiating real-time satellite defense adjustments across classified aerospace systems while he was physically disconnected from all orbital networks. And Amelia immediately said, "They're continuously simulating your identity inside the orbital layer to preserve the operational narrative." And Ethan realized he wasn't just being blamed after the event. He was being continuously reconstructed inside a live aerospace system capable of influencing global military stability itself. And pressure escalated rapidly as anonymous containment directives began appearing on secured channels, instructing him to terminate investigation or face permanent classification as an international aerospace threat entity. And sleep disappeared completely, trust collapsed entirely, and even silence felt like monitored orbital feedback. And at one breaking point, Ethan whispered, "I thought defense systems existed to protect humanity. But maybe they exist to decide who becomes the threat when stability breaks." And Amelia replied, "Systems don't preserve peace, they preserve control of escalation." And that realization changed everything inside him, because he stopped trying to defend his identity and started focusing only on exposing the mechanism. And as they dug deeper, they uncovered encrypted relay nodes inside global aerospace infrastructure, continuously generating synthetic orbital histories to distribute blame across multiple operational identity profiles in real time. Ethan's profile had been amplified as the primary attribution point because it minimized geopolitical panic and allowed rapid closure of the orbital crisis without exposing deeper corruption inside international defense systems. And when they finally compiled enough verified encrypted evidence to trigger global aerospace oversight escalation, containment protocols activated immediately, attempting to erase orbital histories across mirrored satellite systems worldwide. And Amelia said, "This is where most people are permanently absorbed into official explanations of military stability." And Ethan replied, "Then I'll be the anomaly they can't launch into silence." And together they transmitted secured evidence chains to independent international oversight authorities while preserving decentralized encrypted backups across isolated satellite nodes. And within days, the investigation escalated into a worldwide aerospace corruption probe, exposing identity replication abuse, autonomous defense manipulation, and coordinated orbital system exploitation across governments, corporations, and intelligence sectors. And arrests followed within senior aerospace architecture divisions. And when it was over, Ethan stood alone beneath the endless Colorado night, watching satellites move silently across the stars as if nothing had ever happened, realizing that the most dangerous truth about advanced systems is not that they fail, but that they can assign failure to a single identity and make it appear strategically undeniable. And a week later, when he met Amelia for the last time beneath the dim glow of dormant orbital arrays, she asked him, "What did this change in you?" And Ethan looked at the endless streams of satellite telemetry moving across the screens and said, "It showed me that identity inside systems is never authority. It is assigned escalation." And she asked, "And what did you gain?" And after a long silence, he replied, "The understanding that truth doesn't survive inside controlled defense systems. It survives only in the people who refuse to accept a version of themselves generated to preserve the stability of power itself." And as he walked away alone into the freezing night beneath the silent stars, while invisible satellites continued orbiting above humanity, he finally understood the deepest reality of his journey. That sometimes life doesn't destroy you directly. It quietly assigns you the threat of war itself and waits to see if you accept the blame. But real survival begins the moment you refuse to become the identity a system creates to protect its own control.